The sky split open like cracked glass as the first rift appeared over Earth. No warning, no message, just a hole that bled light and storms. People ran in fear while others watched in awe. The military fired at it, but the rift didn't care. It grew larger each hour until the clouds looked like they were being pulled into it. Eli was a scout, just 28, with no family left and nothing to lose. He stood with the other soldiers at the edge of the containment zone, watching. Drones vanished into the rift, never returning. His job was to go in if commanded, even if it meant death. When the order came, no one stepped forward. Eli raised his hand. The officers hesitated. One asked if he was sure. He nodded. They handed him a sealed suit, a weapon, and a tracker. He entered alone. No goodbyes. Just the crackle of his radio and the sound of wind being sucked into the glowing hole. Inside the rift, there was no time, no sky, no gravity. Eli floated through energy and stormlight, shapes moving past him too fast to see. He felt like he was falling but not downward. Something reached into his mind, but he fought to stay awake. Then came the flash. Blinding, silent, hot. And then stillness. He landed in a forest, but not one from Earth. The trees were tall and glowing faintly from inside. The air buzzed with strange electricity. The sky above had 2 moons. Eli's suit was still working, but the signal was dead. He was alone in an alien world. For hours he walked. His boots crunched over glowing moss, and insects darted past with wings of light. Then he heard a voice, soft, female. Not from his cones but in his mind. It was clear, gentle, and curious. "Why are you here?" it asked. He turned and saw her. She stepped from the trees like a living myth. Her skin was deep violet, her hair green like emerald flame. She had horns, not sharp but curved like a crown. Her armor looked grown, not made. It shimmered as she moved. Her eyes were glowing red, but not evil. She looked at him with caution and wonder. Eli raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. She tilted her head and walked closer. The voice in his mind grew stronger. "You are not like the others," she said. He asked who she was. She smiled without moving her lips. "I was the last to guard the gate. Now I am alone too." They didn't speak aloud. Somehow they understood each other without sound. She introduced herself as Kelra. She said the rift had not just opened, it had been forced. Something old and dark had escaped. She was here to stop it, but she could not return alone. The rift changes those who enter. "You are not what you were," she said. Eli looked at his hands. They sparked with energy, soft but real. His eyes reflected light unnaturally. He felt stronger, faster, different. Kelra said the rift left traces. Some humans might not survive. Some, like him, adapt. You are touched by the gate. "That is rare," she said. They camped under the glowing trees. She showed him how to shape light into heat, how to breathe in rhythm with the forest. At night, he asked why she helped him. She stared at the moons and said, "Because if we fail, both our worlds die." The next day, creatures attacked. Not animals, monsters, twisted by energy. Some had human features but broken and melted. Others were like shadows, hungry and fast. Eli and Kelra fought side by side. Her blades moved like fire. Eli's weapon fired energy bolts without him pulling. The trigger, something inside him woke up during the battle. His heart beat faster, but he felt calm. One of the beasts lunged at him, but he caught it with one hand and flung it back like it weighed nothing. Kelra looked at him with both awe and fear. "You are becoming more than human," she whispered. After the fight, they sat under the trees again. Kelra showed him an old stone with symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the rift. "This world was once whole," she said. "But long ago, it was split open, just like your Earth is now. The enemy is trying to connect the broken pieces again. Not to heal them, but to feed." Eli asked how to stop it. She touched the stone. The rift must be closed from both sides. One must stay. One must return. But the one who returns will bring the mark. The other becomes the seal. Eli understood. She was meant to be the seal. But now, something had changed. The rift had chosen him. She placed her hand on his chest. You carry its touch. That means you can survive the return, but you will not be the same. He asked what would happen if he refused. Then your world will be devoured. And so will mine. He looked at the rift's light in the distance. It pulsed like a heartbeat, calling to him. He looked back at Kelra. She had no reason to trust him, yet she walked beside him. He took her hand. Her fingers were cold but steady. Then we return together, he said. She nodded. But you must be the one who walks through. I can only guide you until the edge. He didn't know what he would become. He didn't know what waited on the other side. But he knew one thing clearly. If he came back, he wouldn't come back alone. Asterisk. The forest thinned as they moved toward the rift's core. Strange lights drifted between the trees like floating seeds. The ground had changed color, no longer green or brown, but a soft silver that shimmered under their feet. Kelra walked ahead with grace, but Eli noticed her slowing down. The energy around them felt heavier. He asked if she was all right. She said the closer they got to the rift, the more it drained her. My bond is to this side, she said. Crossing into your world would break me. Eli felt the opposite. The closer he moved toward the rift, the more awake he became. His body no longer ached. His thoughts were sharper. They reached a clearing where a stone platform floated above the ground. It had no supports, just hovered midair, spinning slowly. Kelra called it the gate anchor. This is where both worlds overlap. Time, space, all thin here. The enemy uses this place to send its thoughts through the veil. She sighed. As they stepped onto the platform, a sound like distant thunder rolled across the forest. The sky above them cracked. A second rift was opening larger, angrier. Kelra gasped. This is not normal. Something has seen us. Before they could act, a shape dropped from the clouds. It was not beast or man. It looked like a cloak of shadows filled with teeth and wires. No face, only shifting eyes blinking in and out of its form. Kelra pushed Eli back and raised her hand. A wave of green energy burst from her palm and struck the creature, but it didn't fall. Eli's body moved before he could think. His arm lifted, and the veins under his skin glowed. A blast of blue light exploded from his hand and slammed into the shadow. The creature screamed without a mouth and twisted away into the trees. Kelra stared at him, breathing hard. You did that without the weapon, she said. He looked at his palm. His fingers still sparked. He said it felt like something inside him had opened. Kelra stepped closer. The rift is speaking through you now. It's choosing you faster than expected, she said. They had no time to rest. The second rift had already begun warping the sky. Bolts of black lightning struck the trees. A massive wave of energy rippled across the land, making the ground pulse like a heartbeat. Kelra pulled Eli down and whispered, "Close your eyes. Do not let it see you." Even with eyes closed, Eli felt the thing moving above them. It wasn't just large. It was wrong. It bent the world around it. It reached inside his mind, trying to speak in broken thoughts. He gritted his teeth and pushed back. A voice screamed, then vanished. The weight lifted. Kelra opened her eyes. She looked shaken. It tried to take you, she said. But you pushed it away. That should not be possible. Eli stood, confused and angry. What is this thing? Why does it want me? She paused before answering. Because you are becoming its opposite. They left the platform behind. The air was now unstable, full of sharp particles that stung their skin. Kelra led him down an old path made of cracked stone. Vines with glowing red flowers wrapped around ancient ruins. These were once homes, she said. Before the breach, my people lived here. They entered a broken hall. It had no roof, only pillars rising into a sky that no longer held stars. Inside was a large crystal mounted in a stone circle. Kelra placed her hand on it, and it glowed faintly. This is a memory keeper. It can show what was lost, she said. The crystal lit up. A vision played in the air. It showed a city with towers made of living stone. People like Kelra walking in peace. Then the sky shattered. The rift came. The shadows arrived. Fire consumed the streets. Kelra stepped back. Her hands shook. I was a child when it happened, she said. Eli looked at the ruins and understood. This wasn't just about Earth. This was about stopping the same cycle from repeating. Kelra said the rift feeds on pain, memory, and transformation. It does not destroy, it twists. It makes things forget who they are, and then uses them, she said. He asked if it had taken others like him. She nodded. Many humans have passed through in other places. Most became lost. A few became weapons. Eli felt cold. What if he was one of those weapons and didn't know it? Kelra touched his chest again. You still remember who you are. That's what matters. They rested briefly under a glowing arch. Kelra hummed a soft tune that made the air still. Eli asked what would happen if he couldn't close the rift. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the horizon, where a tower of dark energy now pulsed like a living wound. That is where it grows, she said. The core of its mind. If we reach it, you can decide whether to destroy the gate or seal it forever. Eli asked what would happen if he chose wrong. She finally looked at him. Then it will take everything your Earth, my world, and you. 2. They set off again, heading toward the tower. The path twisted, becoming harder with each step. Strange creatures watched from the trees, but none attacked. Eli's thoughts were becoming clearer. He no longer feared the energy in his blood. He began to use it like a limb. Kelra taught him how to control the light, how to form it into shapes, how to shield his thoughts. He learned fast, too fast. It is as if you were made for this, she said. He smiled and replied, maybe I was, or maybe I just don't want to see my world burn. The land changed again as they neared the base of the dark tower. The trees faded into ash, and the ground turned to smooth glass. Every step echoed as if they walked on a frozen scream. The wind was silent, but the air buzzed in their bones. Eli looked around and said the place felt hollow. Kelra nodded. This is not a true place. It is shaped from stolen memory. She picked up a rock, and it turned to dust in her hand. Nothing here lives. It only mimics life. Eli asked how the tower could be destroyed. She said it had to be touched by one who bore both worlds within. Eli now understood why it had to be him. He had crossed into the rift and survived. He carried Earth's blood and the rift's power. The tower responded to that. As they moved closer, the tower shifted its form, stretching higher and pulsing with rhythm. It was alive and it knew he was coming. Strange shapes started crawling from the base. Some walked on 4 limbs. Others floated. Their eyes glowed white, but their bodies were made of flickers as if they weren't fully there. Kelra whispered, they are echoes of the lost. Do not listen if they speak. One of the creatures stopped in front of Eli. Its face changed rapidly. His mother, his old friend, a soldier he saw die years ago. The thing said his name, but he shut his eyes and raised his hand. A wave of energy burst from his palm, sending the mimic creature into dust. They ran across the glass field, dodging more shapes that clawed at their minds. Kelra sang softly again, her voice cutting through the false visions. The closer they got to the tower, the louder the sound of a heartbeat became. It wasn't his. It wasn't hers. It was the rift's. At the tower's base, a gate formed. Out of black roots and glowing lines. Eli placed his hand on it, and the roots pulled back, allowing them to enter. Inside was a hollow chamber with floating stairs made of light. Each step pulsed as they climbed higher toward the heart of the tower. Kalra warned that the top would not be a place but a mind. It will try to speak. It will lie. It will use your truth against you, she said. Eli asked what he should do. Do not fight it with anger. Anchor yourself to who you are. That is how you win, she replied. The stairs ended in a wide circle of dark crystal. Above them floated a giant orb of swirling color. Red, blue, green, and black all twisted inside like a storm trapped in glass. From it came a voice that echoed in their heads. Return, belong, become, it said. Eli stepped forward. He felt pulled in every direction, as if his soul was being tested like a rope under tension. The voice grew louder. You are not one thing, you are broken. Let us make you whole. Eli gritted his teeth and said, I am already whole. The orb cracked. A shape stepped out, Eli's shape. But its eyes were hollow, and its smile was wrong. It walked toward him and said, You are weak. You fear loss. Let me carry your pain. Kalra stood ready to fight, but Eli raised his hand. No, I'll face myself, he said. The copy lunged, fast as lightning. Eli blocked with his forearm, the skin glowing. The two forms clashed, one trying to replace the other. The copy spoke his fears aloud, being forgotten, being helpless, failing to save anyone. But Eli answered each fear with truth. I remember who I lost. I'm not helpless. I chose to come here. I fight to protect, not escape. His voice grew stronger. Light burst from within him. The false Eli screamed and shattered into pieces. The orb above cracked again. The tower began to shake. Kalra held onto a stone as the chamber crumbled. You have broken the link. Now it must fall. But we must leave or be trapped inside it. Eli nodded, but before they could run, a beam of black fire shot down from the orb and hit the floor, forming something new. It was a massive creature, shaped like bones and shadow. It crawled from the fire with 6 arms and a head made of twisted mirrors. Each mirror reflected a different nightmare. Kalra gasped. This is its last defense. The shape of fear itself. Eli stepped forward. I'm not afraid of what it shows me, he said. The beast rushed at him, arms swinging, mirrors blinding. But Eli no longer fought with fists. He opened his arms and let the light within him shine. The mirrors cracked. The beast screeched and stumbled. Kalra joined him, her energy wrapping around his. Together they formed a wall of light, not to attack, but to erase lies. The creature tried to speak, but its voice faltered. The light filled its body. It shook once, then vanished like dust in wind. The orb above cracked fully and exploded into a spiral of color. The tower groaned and began to fall. Eli grabbed Kalra's hand and ran. The stairs vanished beneath their feet, but the rift opened ahead. A tunnel of energy stretched back toward Earth. Their only way out. Kalra stopped at the edge. This is where I must remain. I am the seal. Eli looked at her, heart racing. No, we go together. She shook her head gently. If I go, the rift will not close. You must return alone. But take what I give you. It will protect your world. She leaned forward and placed her forehead against his. Energy passed between them. Her eyes glowed once more. You are no longer just human. You are the bridge now. She stepped back. The tower collapsed behind her. Eli was pulled into the light and vanished from her world. Eli landed hard on cold ground, but it wasn't the alien world anymore. It was Earth. He looked up and saw the gray sky, the broken fence of the containment zone, and the faint hum of old military lights. But the place looked older, forgotten, abandoned. Time had moved differently. He stood up slowly. His armor was cracked and glowing faintly. The energy inside him felt stable but quiet. The last thing he remembered was Kalra placing her forehead against his. Her final words echoed in his head. He checked his gear and saw that the tracker still blinked. No signal came through it. He began walking toward the base he had left. Everything around him was overgrown. Trees had broken through buildings. Rust covered the metal gates. He passed a collapsed drone, its shell covered in vines. The silence was strange and deep. At the gate, he saw movement. A small drone hovered out, scanned him, then flew back inside. Moments later, voices crackled through a nearby speaker. "Identify yourself," someone said. He gave his name, rank, and mission. There was silence for a few seconds. Then a new voice answered, "Impossible. That mission was 12 years ago." Eli froze. He looked down at his hands. They had not aged. The rift had kept him frozen while Earth had kept moving. "I need to speak to command," he said. The gate opened slowly. Guards in new armor stood ready. Inside the base, everything was different. The technology was cleaner, faster, more advanced. New soldiers looked at him like a ghost. He was taken to a chamber lined with glowing panels. A woman in black uniform entered. She was older, maybe a general. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him. "You're Eli Grant, the one who entered Rift 01, she said. He nodded. She walked around him and scanned his body. "You haven't aged. That's impossible without cryo. Your DNA is altered." He told her everything. The world, Kalra, the tower, the creature. She didn't interrupt. When he finished, she walked to a panel and called in scientists. "He brought something back," she said. "We need to isolate and study it." Eli stood. "No, I didn't come back to be studied. I came back to warn you. The rift will try again. And next time, it won't stop with my world." The room fell silent. The general sighed. "We've had 37 rifts since you vanished. None like yours. Most are unstable, brief. But 2 were permanent. We lost cities, millions died. We never knew how to stop it, until now." Eli stepped closer. "I can stop it, but not alone." They tested him for hours. Blood scans, neural feedback, energy readings. Every result came back the same. Eli was no longer entirely human. He had control over the same light Kalra used. His cells carried a living pattern of energy. Something new had taken root in him. At night he dreamed of her. Kalra standing alone at the ruins, holding the seal in place. He felt her presence, like a quiet hum in his heart. Sometimes he heard her voice when no one spoke. She was part of him now. Not a memory, but something deeper. They gave him a room, simple and clean. The walls displayed rift maps and global threat zones. He studied them all. Each rift was a scar, a wound tearing deeper into Earth. The scientists said nothing could close them fully. Eli disagreed. He knew it could be done. The general returned the next day. "We need your help. But we also don't understand what you've become. If you turn against us." He cut her off. "Then you'll have bigger problems than me. I didn't come back to fight humans." She studied him, then gave a slow nod. They gave him a team. Soldiers, researchers, engineers. People trained in rift technology. They called it Operation Second Seal. Their goal was simple: retrace the energy signature he brought back and find a way to shut the rifts permanently. Eli led them. He stepped into their lab, where blueprints floated in air and machines pulsed with energy. They had machines that could mimic rift frequencies, but none could survive exposure for more than minutes. Eli stood near one and extended his hand. The machine stabilized. The team stared. One whispered, "He's the key. He's the anchor now." Eli ignored the praise. He looked at the next map. A new rift had opened in South Asia, larger than others. It pulsed with the same rhythm he remembered from the tower. He knew it was not random. Kalra had warned him. If the rift found no anchor, it would seek to make one. Something inside the new tier was waiting, not alive, but watching. Eli could feel it now, whispering behind his eyes. He closed them and focused. A flash of heat ran down his spine when he opened his eyes. The map had shifted. A location glowed brighter. The teen gasped. He had pinpointed the rift's source without touching the console. The general was called again. She stared at the data and then looked at him. "How did you do that?" she asked. "I didn't," he replied. "It did." He touched the center of the map. "It's calling, and I think I need to answer again." The general hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We'll send a ship. But this time, you won't go alone." Eli agreed. But inside he knew the truth. No one else could walk where he had walked. He walked back to his room. As the door closed behind him, he stood still. His heart beat once, then pulsed with light. He raised his hand. A symbol formed in the air, glowing faintly. It was the same one Kelra had once drawn with. Her energy. He smiled and whispered one word. "Ready." The ship that carried Eli across the sky was unlike anything that existed when he left. It was silent, shaped like a blade, powered by a rift core captured years ago. As it moved toward the new breach in South Asia, Eli sat quietly, feeling the pressure grow in his chest. The team around him tried to act calm. They spoke in clipped tones, adjusted their scanners, and pretended not to glance at him too often. But they could feel it too. The air around Eli shimmered faintly, not from heat, from something else entirely. He closed his eyes and reached inward. There, beneath skin and bone, the energy pulsed like a sleeping giant. Kelra's gift was still alive inside him. He could sense its shape, now a blend of her world and his, merged into something new. He didn't fear it anymore. The ship arrived above the rift. From the sky, the land looked cracked and bleeding light. Whole buildings floated mid-air, caught in the tier's field. Roads bent at wrong angles. A low humming filled their ears even. Inside the ship, the breach was active and aware. Eli stood. "Open the door," he said. The commander of the ship shook his head. "You'll be torn apart out there. That zone is unstable." Ayla raised one glowing hand. "I can walk through it." The team backed away as the door slid open, and hot wind blasted inside. He stepped out onto the floating platform. His boots hit metal, but the structure underneath bent like it was breathing. Around him, time flickered. Birds froze mid-flight. Lightning hung in place. The rift had no rules. It rewrote the world with every second. Eli kept walking. The farther he went, the more he changed. His footsteps glowed. His arms felt lighter. The symbols along his skin lit up on their own. He was no longer just a visitor to the rift. He was now part of it. It accepted him. At the rift's center stood a tower of roots and glass. It wasn't like the one in Kelra's world. This one was sharp and broken, made from stolen pieces. He touched the wall and saw flashes of memories that weren't his: wars, cries, fire, cities being erased. Then he saw her. Not in body, but in light. Kelra's energy shimmered within the structure. She had sent part of herself through him, and now it responded. The tower pulsed, and the glass split open. From the rift, something began to crawl out. It had no shape. At first, it was smoke, then metal, then bone. It grew eyes that blinked and vanished. It spoke in voices Eli recognized: his past, his guilt, his weakness. It was the same entity from the first tower, only stronger. Eli didn't run. He planted his feet and formed a wall of energy around himself. "I know what you are," he said. "You take what's broken and wear it like a mask. But I'm not broken anymore." The creature shrieked and struck him with tendrils of shadow. The energy shield flickered but held. Eli focused and expanded his light. Around him, the Rift itself began to react. Pieces of floating earth dropped. The tower shook, the voice in his mind cracked. "You cannot seal what is already part of you," it said. "You're right," Eli replied. "That's why I'm not sealing you, I'm replacing you." He stepped forward and opened both arms. A blast of raw light erupted from his chest, drawn from Kalra's mark and the core of his being. It hit the creature full force. The thing screamed and fell back, twitching and burning. But it didn't die. It began to change shape again. This time, it looked like Kalra. It spoke with her voice. "Eli, stop. You don't know what you're doing." He closed his eyes. "You're not her. She never lied to me." He lifted his hand, and a spear of light formed in his grip. With one clean motion, he threw it into the creature's chest. It pierced the false image, and the voice shattered like glass. The tower cracked. The world began to collapse around him. Eli dropped to one knee. His body shook. He felt his cells pulling apart and rejoining in waves. The energy was overwhelming. Then, a gentle hand touched his shoulder. He looked up and saw a new figure. It was Kalra, or a vision of her, glowing and calm. "You have gone farther than I ever could," she said. He reached for her, but his hand passed through. "Your world needs a guardian now. One who remembers both sides." He asked if she was truly gone. She only smiled. "I never left. I just changed form." Around them, the rift began to fold inward. The tower's pieces turned into light and flowed into Eli's body. The winds stilled. Time began to move normally. The floating ruins sank gently to the earth. The rift was no longer a wound. It was closing. Eli stood, now glowing from head to toe. The sky above turned blue for the first time in months. The watchers from the ship stared in silence. He turned back toward them and began to walk. With each step, the energy faded gently, like waves retreating from the shore. When he reached the ship, no one spoke. The commander saluted. The door closed behind him. He collapsed into the seat, eyes heavy. For the first time in a long while, he felt peace. He whispered to himself a single truth he now understood fully. He had not returned alone. Eli remained in recovery for 3 days, but no one dared enter his room without permission. Monitors showed pulses of energy that matched no known readings. The walls around him had started to vibrate faintly with every breath he took. His body was no longer just flesh and blood. Doctors tried to explain what he had become, but their words were too limited. They said he had bonded with rift matter on a cellular level. They said his brain had rewired to channel otherworldly frequencies. But they didn't understand the most important thing. Eli was no longer just a man. He was a connection between worlds. A gate that could choose whether to open or close. Inside him lived Kalra's essence and the memory of everything they had faced. She was quiet now, but not gone. Her presence steadied him. The general visited on the 4th day. She looked older than before, her shoulders heavy with the weight of what Earth had faced. She sat across from him and asked what he saw inside the rift. Eli told her everything. The creature, the false tower, the truth. She didn't interrupt him. When he finished, she placed a small disc on the table and activated a projection. More rifts are appearing, small ones, weak ones. But they're trying to open all across the globe. He asked how many. She replied without looking up, 17, in 1 day. Eli stood slowly. The light under his skin responded. Then I need to stop them. The general raised her hand. Not alone. You may be the only one who can reach the center, but we'll stand with you from the edge. We're not the same Earth anymore. Scientists presented Eli with a new suit, built using traces of his energy. It was thinner than armor, but stronger than steel. It reacted to his thoughts and flowed like a second skin. As he wore it, the rift lines in his body aligned perfectly with its design. He stepped outside under the open sky. People had gathered in silence to see him. Not just soldiers, civilians, survivors, children holding on to hope. They didn't cheer. They just watched. Ailey walked through them, nodding once to each face. He understood what it meant. He was no longer just a returnee. He was their defender. The one who had walked through death and returned, not because he was chosen, but because he chose to go. Kelra had said the rift twists truth, but it also tests the heart. And he had passed that test. The new operation began within hours. A special aircraft called the Veil Piercer was built to fly near unstable rifts. Ailey would anchor it from the inside. The ship had no weapons. It needed none. Ailey himself was the weapon now. They launched toward the largest rift spike appearing above the Arctic Circle. From orbit, it looked like a glowing crack in ice. Frozen. Land bent upward, floating chunks of glacier spinning in the sky. The air shimmered violently and magnetic fields twisted. Eli stood at the front window as the ship hovered above the rift. "This one's different," he said. "It's not trying to open. It's trying to tear." The pilot looked at him and asked if he could stop it. Ailey turned to face the ramp and nodded once. He walked into the open air without fear. The rift pulled at him immediately, wind screaming, light flickering. He held his ground and raised both arms. His body glowed from within, brighter than the rift's lightning. Then he whispered Kelra's name. A symbol formed in the air before him. It pulsed once, then expanded, wrapping the rift in a golden net of light. The sky fought back, roaring with thunder. The ice below shattered. But Eli didn't move. His feet stood on nothing, yet he was grounded by will. The rift began to fold. Its screen turned into a low hum. A second later, it collapsed in on itself like paper and fire. Only soft snow remained where it once was. Eli breathed deeply and turned back to the ship. His voice came over the com calmly. "One down." The crew cheered softly, not loud, but filled with awe. They returned to base, where 3 more rifts had already appeared. Eli didn't rest. He stepped into each, forming symbols, bending the space, closing the tiers with force and focus. By the end of the week, 14 rifts had been sealed. Each one took more from him. His body burned, his mind shook, but his core remained steady. What Kelra had left inside him wasn't just power, it was resolve. A duty that could not be passed to another. The 15th rift opened near a city. This time people watched in real time. Eli descended from the sky like a comet, his body glowing, light forming under his feet. He landed before the breach and extended his hands. Children pointed and whispered his name. He looked at the rift, felt its pull, then shaped it gently like clay. Not every tear needed force. Some could be persuaded to close. He smiled as the light folded inward. The crowd cheered as the ground returned to peace. A girl ran forward and placed a flower near his feet. He knelt and picked it up, staring at the simple petals. It was small, fragile, but alive. Just like Earth. He looked at the horizon where the last 2 rifts flickered in the far distance. And deep within him, he heard her voice again. It was time to finish it. Asterisk. The last 2 rifts did not act like the others. They didn't flicker. They didn't pulse. They stood steady in the sky like 2 watching eyes, one over the sea, one above the mountains. Scientists said their shape wasn't natural. They were being held open from the inside. Eli knew what that meant. Something had made it through again. Something was keeping the rift alive. He stood at the edge of the airfield as final checks were made. His body still carried light, but it had dimmed slightly. The strain of every seal weighed on him. The general walked up beside him. "You don't have to face both," she said. He looked at her calmly. "I do. If I don't finish this, they'll keep coming." She gave a short nod and handed him a small object. A memory stone recovered from the Arctic mission. It pulses when you're near a breach. Kelra's mark interacts with it. Our tech can't explain it. Eli closed his fingers around the stone. He felt it hum softly against his palm. She left more than memory in me, he said. She left her purpose. The ship launched again. The first stop was the ocean rift. It spun above the dark waters like a hurricane frozen in place. Below it, the sea had parted into a crater. The crew stared out in silence. Eli stood and walked to the ramp as it opened. The wind was still. The water did not move. Eli stepped forward, walking on light that formed under each foot. He approached the rift and raised the stone. It glowed, then cracked. A shadow moved behind the light, not a creature, a presence. A mind. I see you, it said in thousands of voices. Eli didn't reply. He raised his hands and shaped the seal. The rift pushed back harder than ever before. Lightning twisted into claws. Water surged upward. But Eli did not falter. His body became the anchor. He planted the stone into the air like it was soil. The rift screamed and began to fold. It resisted, fighting to stay open. But Kelra's mark flared once more inside him. He focused all his strength and pushed forward. The rift collapsed like falling glass. He returned to the ship. His breathing was heavy. His vision flickered. One left, he said. The crew didn't speak. They just adjusted the course and headed to the mountains. Snow covered the peaks. But where the rift floated, no snow fell. No birds flew. All was quiet. As the ship hovered near, a sudden pulse knocked out the controls. Lights flickered. The rift had grown smarter. It reacted to their presence. Eli looked to the pilot. "Drop me here," he said. "Don't wait. If I stop it, you'll feel the air shift. If I don't, you'll know." The ramp lowered. Eli jumped, landing on the frozen slope without a sound. Wind rushed past him, but it did not touch him. The rift above spun slowly, waiting. He walked until he stood directly beneath it. Then it opened wide like a mouth. From within came the final shape. A towering figure made of mirrors, shadow, and light. Not a beast, not a monster. It looked like him. Its face mirrored his own, but its eyes were hollow and burning. "You sealed all my doors," it said. "Why not join me instead?" Eli answered by stepping forward and raising his hands. The figure attacked. Blades of dark energy lashed out. Eli caught each with bare hands, the energy burning his skin but not breaking him. He struck back with light, forming symbols midair. The figure screamed and tried to twist into Kelri. Again, he didn't stop. "She lives in me," he said. "You can't wear her face." He pressed forward, sealing one mirror at a time, closing every memory the figure used as a weapon. The mountain shook. Snow fell in sheets. The sky turned gold as Eli summoned every last piece of his power. His body began to break apart into strands of light. He knew he could not return. Not this time. He was becoming something else. He shaped the final seal with both arms raised high. The ground cracked beneath him. The rift tried to escape, but it was too late. Eli was no longer man or soldier. He was the lock, the guardian, the final barrier between Earth and what waited behind the rift. The seal struck like lightning, bright and endless. The figure roared once, then vanished. The rift closed behind it. The sky returned to blue. The wind returned to normal. On the ship, the crew stood in silence. The sensors reported total silence. No rift energy, no anomaly. No alien. Back at the base, days passed. No new rifts appeared. Earth's skies healed. Wildlife returned to old forests. Cities began to rebuild. But in one room, a stone still pulsed. It had once been used by Kelra. Now it glowed softly with blue light. The general stood before it. Scientists asked if it meant anything. She shook her head. "He's gone." But not lost. On a nearby screen, A child drew a symbol in the air. A glowing line followed her finger. The same symbol Eli had made before. In the mountains where the last rift had vanished, the snow blew gently across a flat plain. There, marked in glass, was the shape of a single glowing seal. It pulsed once faintly as if breathing, then it went still. The world was quiet again. Eli had fulfilled his promise. He had returned with something else, and that something was peace.